Freddie Heldreich, good to have you with us. Obviously, 2022 season, lots to talk about. From your personal point of view, how would you assess the year?
Yeah, it was ups and downs. Obviously, being a T20 cricketer, really, you expect that. It's a real roller coaster. I feel definitely started well. Was happy and had some good games, and then I think I got a bit too high with myself and had some bad games, and then went a bit low. It was obviously a bit of a mixed emotions, winning a lot and then needing to win something like one out of the last 4 games. To unfortunately lose all 4 was a bit gutting. The side was looking good for quarterfinals, and then hopefully on to bigger, better things. But it wasn't for us. Hopefully next season.
It's fairly intense stuff, T20, isn't it? And you've got big crowds in, and emotions sometimes run pretty high. You had, as you said yourself, a few ups and downs, a bit of a roller coaster, and copped a bit of flack. I know midway through the season, after the Bears game in particular. How easy was that to cope with? I would imagine quite tough.
Yeah, I felt for me personally, first season in the Blast before, didn't really have any real poor performances. Obviously less outstanding, but I was pretty consistent. And then to go from having a good game against Durham here, getting myself man of the match and really pleased with everything, to then having a few stinkers of games, to be honest, was a bit of an eye-opener really, to see what people fly off to you on social media. I was always kind of the person who likes to scroll through it and see, the well done Freddie, and then when it's a bad game, scroll through and you see a lot of messages saying this bloke should never play cricket, all that stuff. So it's hard to take on the chest, but you're always going to get stick. You can get stick when you play well, and I think it's something I've also got to learn to cope with and just move on. I think at the end of the day, I'm here and the people flying those messages off are sitting at home. So I've got to hopefully take it on the chin and just bounce back.
Yeah, well, that's a very honest assessment. I mean, I think possibly, we talked about with Alex Russell earlier about wrist spin. It's the nature of the beast, isn't it, in a sense? It's not an area of the game where it's always easy to do the same thing repeatable day after day after day. There are going to be elements when it's just not coming out right. And I suppose it's just a question of getting used to that and reconciling yourself to that.
Yeah, it's known as one of the hardest skills in cricket, really. So many things can go wrong when bowling wrist spin. The slightest wrist adjustment can cause the ball to go any direction. And obviously T20 is a hard game for it because the batsman's always trying to come at you, especially being like a youngster. I feel they like to target the youngsters a little bit because less experience, and usually when you get hit for a boundary first couple of balls of an over, you usually lose your head a little bit, and then they kind of capitalise on that. There's obviously a lot of mental side behind all of it, as well as kind of your technical skills. I feel like it's the belief in yourself. If you have gone for 6 first couple of balls, you need to be like, okay, well, those 2 balls didn't happen, rather than dwelling on them. And when you dwell, that's when mistakes happen.
And let's talk about, it brings me nicely to a point I was going to make, because resilience obviously is hugely important. And think back to the Leicestershire game here, where I think for the first and possibly the only time you bowled at the end of the power play, I think bowled the 6th over, went for 19. Now, that can happen, but then you came back and you finished up with 3 wickets, the last 3 overs, 3 for 20, something like that, which was excellent. So you must draw a bit of comfort and a bit of strength from that you know that you have got that resilience to come back.
Yeah, I think for me, I've never really experienced power play, not even in second team cricket, so it was a bit of a shock when Colby threw the ball, but you can't say no to your captain. You've got to try and give it your best, and yeah, wrist spin up top, 2 fielders out is a hard skill to do. There's very few around the world, I think, who are really successful at it. I can remember it well. I was not in a great place after the first over. I was very annoyed with myself and very frustrated, but luckily Colby backed me and said, we'll go again, and you just have to forget it. I think it's in the past and you just have to move on, and imagine that next over is your first over again, and just forget about the mistakes you did in that previous over.
It's very interesting also you made the point earlier on about the highs and the lows, and the fact that I know, you talk to coaches and they say it's very easy for a young player, especially someone like yourself, who's coming into the game and made a big impact early on, obviously with the big game up at Durham last year and so on, to get very high and then get very low. And again, presumably it's experience just to find a way through that and to make yourself just a little bit more on a level.
Yeah, I think the massive thing is, obviously, when you've had a great game and you've won, you're obviously going to be buzzing, the adrenaline's pumping around, but it's kind of not getting too high, because if you're at the very top, the only way's down. And the same with, obviously, when you're not going your best, you don't want to be sitting down in the dumps, because obviously you want your best for the team as well as yourself. So if you have a bad game but the team win, then the day you've got to be smiles in the day. You don't personally inside, you're a little bit gutted, but you've won, so that's the main thing. And it's looking to cope with it, really. A main issue for me would be obviously what other people say, so that obviously brings you down or boosts you up. I think you can't be reliant on others. You've got to take it in your own stride and just try to stay as level as possible. If that's being man of the match and winning it for your team, or kind of costing the team, I think you have to just try to see it as it's not going to be your last cricket game ever, is it? No. So just stay level and just kind of move on to the next game.
Left arm wrist spin, talk a bit about that, because, and you've touched on this already, there aren't many of you about. You're something of a rarity, a freak, some even would say, in a cricketing sense, in the nicest possible way. That, I suppose, in one sense is brilliant, because you get that rarity value. And look at the way Jake Lintop, for example, obviously has made a terrific career for himself. On the other hand, whereas seam bowlers, batters, off spinners can look around the world game and say, yeah, we can watch him, learn from him. Because there are so few around, who are the ones that you actually watch and learn from? It must be quite difficult.
Yeah, I think the obvious one would be Shamsi. Yeah. Being at the top of his game for the last couple of years. He's just, him and Jake Lintop probably would be the two who are easily accessible to watch. Obviously Shamsi playing around the world, Lintop playing here and going on to bigger and better things. So I think for me, those are the two I would really analyse and watch how they bowl. But they're still very different bowlers to me, even though it's the same action. Jake Lintop's more kind of flighted up there, a lot of googlies, and similar to Shamsi. I think there's probably about 5 mile an hour quicker than both. So for me, it's kind of, I look to watch Rashid Khan. I know obviously being right-handed leg, I feel the similarities with the pacey bowls. Obviously he doesn't spin the ball massive, but spins it enough. I think it's very similar to me. So for me, it's watching kind of a bit of both. So looking how all three of them have their field set and how they go about their business, if the batsman's trying to attack them, what their game plans are and how they get out the over, kind of things like that. So I do spend a lot of time pre-game, post-game, just watching through footage of how they went.
And of course, I mean, if you talk about the rarity value of left-arm wrist spinners, and you must be used to it now, because of course when you were a lot younger, you finished up bowling at India in the nets at Lord's simply because you're a left-arm wrist spinner and there are so few around. I mean, you must still look back on that as a memorable experience.
Yeah, I think that was a real turning point for me. I was 16, I think, roughly. And I'd played a bit of academy stuff here and a bit of minor county stuff back home. So when you get the opportunity to go bowl to the best in the country, the names of massive name players, you take it and you learn a lot from it. When you're bowling to Joe Root as your warm up, you think, oh, this is not what I expected, but you kind of have to calm yourself down a little bit and just realise that at the end of the day they are still amazing cricketers, but they're still just cricketers. They're just human beings. So you have to just relax and be like, why can't I get them out? Or obviously you can't be panicking thinking they're going to hit me for 6 every ball. You have to realise they're just cricketers. Yeah. So you have to take it, learn new things here and there and just overcome it and see what you can take from every experience like that.
Let's talk a little bit about the future, because when we had a chat, it would have been back in 2021 when you just come into the first team. You were saying then that in terms of ambitions, you were looking at the white ball franchises, which obviously there's even more of them now than there were then 12 months ago. Is that still the case? Is that something you'd still like to get involved with?
Yeah, I think the dream for me always has been T20 franchises and everything like that. I'd love to travel the world and play cricket in all these franchises everywhere. Haven't really had a chance yet, but I'm still only 21, so hopefully a couple more good seasons and I could put my name in the hat to some of these. I think for me, the next step, I'd love to get involved in the 100. If that's playing or not playing, just be involved, because the names in the 100 are amazing. If you're playing, for example, at Trent Rockets, you'll have Shamsi and Rashid Khan to learn at with the nets. You're never going to get picked ahead of them because they're the world's best, but half an hour with them in the nets, you can walk away a completely different player.
And I'm going to put the same point to you that I put to Alex Russell about, in a sense, white ball cricket has been seen a renaissance of wrist spin. We would say 20 years ago when T20 cricket was being first talked about, and 2003, the first season, everybody saying it'll finish spin bowling, and particularly wrist spin, because nobody will hazard a wrist spinner in a 20-over game. Completely wrong, and it's given people like you a chance in the game that you might not have had otherwise.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think spin, everything you think flighting it up into the arc, but you look at the amount of spinners around the world who are just adding something different. You look at the Mujibs who are spinning it in every direction. Your Rashid Khans, all these people. It's finding that what works for you and adapting to it, because you know the batsmen are going to try to hit you out the ground every ball. So it's how can I bowl to not be hit as far as possible, really. And there's a lot of players. I think it was a stat about a year ago. I think the top 10 T20 international bowlers were all spinners, or something around there. So it's the element of mystery spin. I think you're looking at just your standard off spinners have still got mystery to them, and the idea is keeping the batsman guessing, and that's where spinners are winning in the game. If you're spinning it both ways or doing something different with the ball, the batsman's not going to always know. And even if they can pick it from the hand, it's still what's it going to do off the deck. So they're a little bit more questioning. And that's where the success of spin bowlers have really jumped into the game of T20.
It's very interesting you say there about looking to see what other people are doing and the different variations. We were talking to Ben Smith, the batting coach here last winter, and saying how easy is it, as coach's point of view, to keep up with what's happening in T20 cricket around the world, because you say there's so many franchise competitions, it's a global thing now. And every time you watch a match from somewhere in the world, you see something that you haven't seen before, a variation, a batting technique, a little funky shot somewhere. Presumably, it's sort of going back to school. You need to be doing your homework, and you need to be watching these games from all around the world to see what other people are doing.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's batters or bowlers, you're watching other people who are being successful and thinking, okay, what are they doing different to what I'm doing? And then taking those notes and adapting your game. For example, Saif last year was really strong on his sweep, and he spent all winter working on sweeping, reverse sweeping, came out to T20 and he was scoring runs everywhere, especially through those shots. So it's adding that part to your string to your bow, really, and kind of going from there. I think for me, looking at right now, adding more variations and seeing what could be successful. Currently working with YT on 4 or 5 new variations, and they might not be ready for the season, but some of them might be. And it's always helpful to have something slightly different to what your competition is.
Question I've been wanting to ask you for a while. You talked a lot about white ball cricket, and you said obviously you regard yourself primarily at the moment, certainly as a white ball cricketer. Let's talk about red ball. Haven't played a lot. There are those of us that would love to see you playing red ball cricket, certainly at second team, and see what happens. Is that something that you would like to do, or is it not really part of your development plan?
I think I've not crossed out red ball cricket at all. I know right now that my biggest threat and my way into the first team cricket is T20, so I'm quite looking in that direction. But no way am I crossing off red ball cricket. I'd love to be able to earn my baggy cap here and play some red ball cricket. For me, I think I want a success in T20 cricket as much as possible, and if red ball has to take a little bit of a back step for the time being, I'm not that bothered about it. But I know that after I finish the blast, there's a lot of time to play second team cricket and stuff like that. So I won't be stopping it at all. And I've got so much interest in playing it. Obviously, I've got to adjust a few things to improve my red ball game. I think my consistency is an area which I really struggle at. I think it affected my 50-over cricket as well. But at the moment, I've got a long winter ahead of working on especially consistency to help for those formats.
It must be. I mean, it's a huge difference bowling 4 overs in a T20, 10 overs possibly in a 50-over. You may finish up having to bowl 30 overs in a day, and then come back and bowl another 30 the following day. It's a big leap.
Yeah, I'm not sure that the body will be okay. I can't remember the last time I bowled more than 5 or 6 overs on the trot. It's That's what's really exciting, I think, about Red Bull cricket. You can get into your groove and you can just keep bowling, and you can sometimes be there all day from one end. And if it's all going well, it's just lovely. Like, I love bowling, so if you're bowling 15, 20 on the trot, it's going to be, it screams of wickets happening, really, we hope. But it's something I'm interested in working on, and hopefully it will go well, but I won't. Yeah, I would be really excited if it could happen better, could work better in the future.
But as a final point, Freddie, do you think that is something that is going to come increasingly into county cricket? Obviously, with a lot of discussion about structure already, that we don't really know how that's going to all pan out. But is it going to be the case that you get less of a crossover between red ball and white ball? Already it's happening, I suppose, that you get some players that don't play white ball or don't play red ball. Do you think that is possibly going to become even more the case?
I think with the growing franchises, I think there will be more players who play only white ball cricket, because you look at their season, they'll play all winter away in random other countries, come back, play the blast, and then they'll go after the 100, and then international duties and stuff like that. I feel like it will get to a point where there will be just white ball dominant players. I don't think so as much red ball only. I think, especially with 50 over cricket, if you're a red ball player, that's very, very similar to 50 over cricket. So I think as it grows, it could become quite a white ball dominant only kind of players, but I don't think red ball will be affected massively by it. I think 50 over cricket will start to get affected. I think, as you can see, the last couple of years, there's less players due to the 100 and stuff, but it gives a great opportunity for so many young players to step up and make a name for themselves. So many through the season that just gone that probably might not have played if their full team was there, but because they've lost a load of players to 100, these youngsters stepped up and scored runs, took wickets, and now tearing up and doing really well.
Freddie, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.